Hi everyone, I'm Troy Armor. I'm come here all the way from Ireland to tell you today about this huge energy that has come into the world called Junkature. And to demonstrate a little bit of what that energy looks like, we're going to start with a little video that helps demonstrate it. It's about empowering young people. It's about letting them come out and express themselves and be appreciated for being creative.
Obviously, everyone's using unconventional materials in their works.
So many of our young people are so involved in climate change and trying to make a difference.
Got all these creative kids and they're searching for a platform that is similar to what football or swimming or athletics gives them. And all of a sudden, Junkature just fills that gap.
You'd look at things at a better perspective now since you've taken part in Junkature.
We've always been amazed by it, and we always want to. Like, this is a dream come true for us to be here right now.
Express our talents and to show what we can do and no holding back.
We are that creative, that sport for creative kids. That's what we are, and that fits everywhere. Thank you. So to tell you how this came about, I have to take you back to 1980s in Ireland. I grew up in a very rural part of Ireland where life was very simple. If you picture it, everything's green. You have 2 TV channels. Most of your time is spent in the fields. It's a different kind of living to what people have right now. But life is very sustainable. I was a creative kid, and for me, there was no access to resources that kids have now. There was no art stores. So for a creative person, the only resources that we had access to was the rubbish that came into our homes. In fact, for us, that wasn't rubbish at all. That was what our imagination could lead it to be. So I spent my youth turning cornflake boxes into castles, turning old dusters into clothes that we would wear and play with around the home. And that, for me, when I look back at it now, we were natural recyclers. Like, sustainability has become this huge phenomenon now. It's this buzzword, everybody's talking about it. We need to become more sustainable. But I started to ask myself, how did we change away? Because, you know, very little of what came into our homes in the 80s went back out again. We were circular homes, but nobody knew what circular homes was. So along my journey, 15 years ago, I ended up in South America, and I was having dinner in this house where the old grandmother was making a big deal because there was a stranger at home. And she was talking Spanish, but I didn't understand, and she wanted to get across that she had made these table mats, and they were the special table mats. And those table mats were made from a lot of corkscrews from wine bottles, glued together and sliced. And it just brought me back to the Ireland of the 80s. And this question came up again. Why did we become a consumer-led society? What had happened? I don't remember waking up one morning and deciding, instead of washing a jam jar and putting my pencils in it, I was going to buy something made out of plastic to do the same job. So that was part of the genesis of Junkature, but there was another side to it. When I was a kid at school, I was terrible at sports. I was that kid last picked for the football team every day. And what people don't realize is it's a form of rejection almost. You go to school every day, comes to lunchtime, and you're there in the line going, well, I'm going to be last. I'm no good at this. But at the same time, you saw that kids that were in sport got so much social capital from it. Kids in sport were being celebrated for their talents. They had friends. They had a tribe around them. They were in the newspaper. They traveled with the school. But the creative kids, we were in the corner. there was nothing that celebrated us in the same way. Whenever 2010 came around, we were in the middle of this global recession. I had time on my hands. My business was fine. I have another business. But I was searching for something, and the genesis was putting all these things together. And I created in 2010 what I call the sport for creative kids. It's junk couture. At the start, that was a hobby for me. So on Sunday evenings, I used to travel around Ireland, myself and my wife, and we used to put these shows on in hotels. They were small, but there was a huge energy around them. And I suppose it built and built. There was a huge organic build around it. At the start, I didn't realize what it was. But in 2018, so that's fast forward 8 years, we came to a crossroads. I believed that we had built junk couture to the maximum of what it could be in Ireland. We were in roughly 60% of the schools. We were in the biggest arenas. We had sponsorship deals. We were on TV. But there was something missing. And I think for me, it wasn't enough. But I couldn't answer the question why. So in 2018, I applied to do a master's at MIT in entrepreneurship. I got accepted, and I headed off to the US, and I talk about this one particular class where the lecturer brought out at the start a box of Kleenex, and he said there's 60 men and women, grown adults, sitting in the room, and he said, we're going to need this tonight because everybody's going to cry. And you have grown adults looking at each other going, well, I'm not going to cry. What's he talking about? So he comes to me, and he says, so why this junk couture? Like, what's so important to you about junk couture? And so I said, I love fashion, I love creativity. And he just kept saying the same thing back to me, every answer I give him, but why? And after 8 or 9 times of that, you get into a place where you get extremely angry, going, stop asking me. But what he did was he brought me to a place where what came out was every kid on that stage is me. They're me when I was that age. And there's no way I am going to let them down. This is more important than just me. And moreover that, there are creative kids in every classroom in the world sitting in corners feeling that their skills are not valued. And that's why at that point I came back from Boston saying, this belongs to the world. Now, I'm going to introduce, because we are lucky enough to have some kids here tonight, and we're going to do a little fashion show. But before I do, I want to tell you about the girl I'm going to introduce on stage, because Katie now works for Junk Couture. But I met Katie in 2012 when she took part in Junk Couture. And Katie's story was similar to mine, a very creative young woman who was searching for something other than sport. Her friends were in sports. Katie was more in the science lab and being creative with different things. And Katie decided to build a dress out of orange peel. I mean, everybody knows orange peel rots. So after 3 or 4 days, it turns green and moldy. And Katie tried. There was no way it wasn't going to turn green and moldy. But over a period of 3 or 4 months, Katie figured out a way to turn orange peel into leather. I made this incredible dress that still exists today and smells fantastic. And that was part of what the drive that sport develops in young people. When you put young people that compete with each other, they push themselves when others would just go, it's not going to work. Young people like Katie, they're determined to win, they're determined to succeed. So they push past barriers that other people would say, you'll never make that work, that's going to rot. But without further ado, I want to introduce Katie on stage. She's going to introduce 5 models to you and give you a little idea what Junk Couture is today, and then I'm going to come back after that and tell you where it's going to go tomorrow. Thank you, Katie.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Troy, for the introduction. As he just mentioned, my name is Katie Brill, and I am the Vice President of PR and Communications at Junkature. But as you've just heard, I am also past contestant of the creative program Junkature, where with my friends, when we were 15 and 16, we created a design out of 100% recycled materials, and those materials were orange peel skin. To paint a picture for you, as a young girl in school, I really had two sides to myself. I wasn't sporty, I was very much that creative kid, but also had that, passion for science as well, would you believe? And this is why when I came across the creative program Junkature, I just got so excited, as it would allow me to combine my two passions. So for creativity and performance, but also that science head part of myself, where I could potentially create a new innovative material that could do good for the planet. Because as we all know, the fast fashion industry is the second largest polluter in the world. And this really provoked this drive in me that I could use my innate creativity to potentially generate lasting positive change. The whole experience was absolutely life-changing, as not only was sustainability education made fun and I could do it through being creative, it was also a very new concept to me back in 2012 as well. Sustainability education wasn't as big as it is now. But for me, it made me realize as a young individual that I could use my creative skills and to help prolong the life of items, be it junk or be it an item of clothing in my own wardrobe. And this could really have some lasting positive change on our planet. But I also gained so much social capital benefits and confidence being involved and having the opportunity to engage with other like-minded individuals. And this to me, as a creative 15, 16-year-old student, was absolutely exhilarating. And all of a sudden, Junkature had become my sport. Since coming on board as an employee of the creative platform in 2019, I have had so many amazing experiences. But just recently, I've been lucky enough to have spent some time here in the UAE, launching the creative program across many schools, and then also learning about the residents and the culture, but also the emphasis that the UAE holds on celebrating youth and their role in driving change through creativity and sustainability. When I took part almost 10 years ago, there was just a handful of schools in Ireland that were involved in the Junkature movement. And now there's thousands of schools and students that are using their creativity to drive change. And this really, really excites me. Since launching in the UAE, just in September, we have over 50 schools signed up across Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Sharjah. And I cannot wait to see what your students have in store for us through their creativity to help generate lasting positive change on our planet. Speaking of the UAE schools that have signed up to the Junkature program and who are also passionate about enriching and empowering the lives of students through creativity and sustainability, I now want to introduce you to 5 local students from GEMS Wellington International School who are going to model some past Junkature creations. So welcome to the stage. First up, I'd like to welcome Fibre Optic, and this is Neil, who is modeling this beautiful creation. This is made out of old wool and twine and e-fibre cables. Ready? Just walk up. Ready? So next up, we have Anfisa, who is modeling Fight the Flame, a striking design made entirely from fire hoses that have outlived their life cycle. And these were obviously a tool for, fighting flames in the recent bushfires and the effects that they have on the environment. Amazing. Thank you, Anfisa. Our next student is Tessa, and she is modelling Memory Lane that has been designed entirely from photography film that has been sourced from a local photographer. The garment was completely sewn by hand, and the design represents the endless memories captured in life.
Feel better when I'm dancing, yeah, yeah. Better when I'm dancing, yeah, yeah. And we can do this together. I bet you feel better when you're dancing, yeah. Woo!
Amazing, thank you, Tessa. Next up, we have All Eyes on Me, and this is modelled by Zaina. This design is created from plastic optic lenses collected from a local opticians. The single-use plastic lenses were heat-treated and bent to create fun shapes and textures, whilst also incorporating upcycled wool and upcycled twine.
I just wanna feel this moment.
Thank you so much, Zaina. You look amazing. So last but certainly not least, we have Amna. And Amna is modelling the beautiful design called Apron Artistry. This design was inspired by the thought of combining art and fashion. By using old broken aprons from the art department, the team produced a haute couture design. Amazing, thank you, Amna. So as you can see, guys, the designs are absolutely incredible and made by 13 to 18-year-olds out of 100% recycled materials. So I would now like to welcome back on stage our 5 beautiful models wearing their Junkature designs and their art teacher, Mr. Erkam. So if everyone can give a round of applause to our students once again, we'll invite them back on stage. Move over. Amazing. Thank you, guys. A round of applause once again as we line them up and we introduce their wonderful art teacher, Mr. Erkam. And these students are taking part in the Junkature program now for the upcoming season here in the UAE, led by their art teacher, Mr. Erkam. And I'd love to ask you just one question. So, of course, you're taking part, and I would love to know, why do you think creative programs like Junkature are so crucial for youth today? What are your thoughts?
Well, creative programs like...
Oh.
Is it working?
Is it working?
Is it? No. Creative programs like Junkature enable students to be more... boost their self-esteem and make them take some risks, which they don't normally. And prepare them for life, to be honest. Look at them, they're absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure they'll be creating some absolutely fantastic work as well.
Yes, I'm sure they will. We can't wait to see what your students have in store for us, Mr. Erkam. And girls, congratulations and thank you so much for volunteering to be our beautiful models today. Once again, everyone, a round of applause. Thank you, girls. And I'd love to welcome back the CEO of Junkature, who will continue the presentation. Welcome back, Mr. Troy Armor. Go this way. Follow them this way. Yeah.
Is there music cue? I'm just on. Wow. I'm sure you'll all agree they're fantastic, and it's hard to believe that 15 and 16-year-olds put all those together from those materials. I think they deserve another round of applause. So when I finished up, I had got to 2018, 3 years ago. I came back from Boston full of vigor, ambition. How could I possibly take this program across the world? And you know, I had for many years compared what it was a little bit to Formula One. And so I started to play around with this idea. Is this Formula One for creatives? What is it? Formula One, when you watch it at home, is people competing in cars that they built. And when I looked at Junk Couture the same way, it was people competing in designs and dresses that they built. And around that, there was this massive energy, people coming to watch, people watching at home, but there were some differences. So, for example, I was only in Ireland, but I started to play on this Formula One model, and this world tour was born. So, as you know, Formula One tours around the world. There's an event every 2 or 3 weeks. So, as of last year, we launched our first global tour, which this year will take us into 6 new cities, and in 2023, 13 cities. So, we will start in Tokyo and go across all 6 continents from January to August every year, inspiring and educating young people about sustainability, about fashion, about how creativity has a value. Some of the questions I was asked at that time was, why fashion? Why do they have to make fashion? Could they not make an engine part or something else? And I suppose when I looked at that, one of the things, and I'm going to make a bold statement here, because for me, fashion is the most important form of art. And the reason I say that is because we express ourselves through it every day. It is a form of art that we wear, and it defines sometimes what we want other people to see about us. That can be as little as a plain jacket or studded sneakers. Whatever it is you want to say about yourself, fashion is your way to communicate that. And the other thing about fashion is that it's universal. There was no barriers. Everybody needed it. Everybody used it every day. There was no barriers to anybody saying to me, well, my kids don't know about car parts, or my kids don't know about making electronics. Everybody knew about fashion. So we set out on this journey last year. This tour was born. And again, like everything else that has happened in this journey, something was missing. And what I started to see then was I wanted to bring the world together in some form or fashion. So at the end of this tour, next year, for the first time ever, there will be this world final of creativity. It's the Olympics of creativity, it's the Eurovision of creativity, it's the World Cup of creativity, whatever way you want to address it. It will involve kids from every continent of the world coming together for one night, a celebration of culture, color, creativity, and sustainability of the youth of the world. And for me, that is what this Junk Couture journey has been about. How can I show the world that creative teams have the power to light up sustainability, which is what we're here to talk about today. When I go back to the start of it, one thing that I have learned is if we go back to the Formula One story, Formula One drives behind it, because of the sport nature of it, it drives this huge innovation in engineering. Every car that you drive has something that's derived from Formula One over the years, whether it's safety, whether it's technology, fuel, better tires. What Junk Couture does is it drives this huge innovation in sustainability and creativity. It's like Katie's story. It is kids that are being put into a creative environment at a much younger age. And I asked myself that question: what would happen if somebody awoke this untapped creative potential that was in teens sitting in the corners of classrooms? And I think the answer to that is we would potentially change the world. This huge energy is sitting there idle because it's getting unrecognized. And I was at New York Climate Week listening to John Kerry about you know, the problem with sustainability now and the problem with zero carbon and all these different things. And his answer was, we need this huge innovation to change this quicker. People are not going to go back to living in caves. We can't turn off all the lights to save fossil fuel. We can't. We need new innovation. And I think Junkature's goal is to change that and drive this innovation. I just want to take you to the last slide now as I finish up. And I want to leave you just with this idea of it's a summary of what we do, really in essence. So Junkature for me is a sport, and sport is about action. And these 4 words, say it in one sentence. They're action words. At Junkature, we inspire the youth of today to create. And through that creativity, we empower them to succeed. I've been Troy Armor. Thank you very much for listening. I'm around later on if anyone wants to ask any questions. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.